Only one man could have made this film, and only one man can bring it to you tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Mr. Christopher Nolan!
Hey you beautiful people, welcome back to a new video on our channel Read Travel Become. A few weeks back I was talking to one of my mentors and he was a storyteller. He also reads books, so we naturally started talking about how stories are told, how authors write stories, and the general idea of storytelling. And he asked me, who is your favorite storyteller? Without even thinking, involuntarily I said Christopher Nolan. And then he asked me, why do you like Christopher Nolan? For those of you who don't know, Christopher Nolan is a director who has made amazing movies like Interstellar, Inception, the Dark Knight films, and many such great films. So I believe he is one of the best storytellers out there. So he asked me, what do you like so much about his storytelling? I did not really have an answer. I really started thinking about it, that why do I like Chris Nolan's movies so much? And then I was interested to know more about how Christopher Nolan tells stories. There was a very popular video of his surfacing around where he was talking about how his film Memento was structured. When I started deep diving into how he tells his stories, I came across this book called The Nolan Variations, which is written by an author called Tom Shore. He has talked about how Christopher Nolan doesn't use story outlines but instead thinks about his stories in the form of shapes. For example, the blockbuster movie Inception was penned down, was ideated on this piece of paper which you are seeing right now. It's crazy, right? Like, this is how the movie was born, this is how the screenplay was written. In this video, I'm going to tell you how Christopher Nolan tells his story, and if you want to be a better storyteller, if you want to understand how novels are written, then this video is for you. This video is going to be very interesting. If you are a Nolan fan, you have to watch the entire video, and make sure you watch the video till the end. You may never know which thought or fact may resonate with you and change the course of your life. So let's get started. Okay, for stories to be told, there are many different structures which have been used by many authors. They have been used time and time by many people. In all of the movies, all of the books that you read, you can see this form of storytelling. There's namely the 3-act structure, which is very common. There's a first act, there's a middle act, and a third act. If you watch Bollywood films, generally the interval scene is the second act, where they have to cut the story at a point where people go out to buy popcorn and drinks and again come back and the story picks up from there. So there's like a pause there, there's like a breakdown in between the second act. So there's a 3-act structure. Then there's also the hero's journey, which is again very popular. Hero's journey is a structure, is a template given by Joseph Campbell, where he says that any story is basically of a guy who has some problems, who he wants to explore something, he's curious, then there is a call to adventure, then he finds some mentors along the way, he has to face the unknowns, he has to face some demons, he has to face some difficulties and then get through it. This is another very popular structure. In fact, in one of my interviews, I had been asked this question, that where in the hero's journey do you feel you are? And I had replied that I am in the journey where I get a call to adventure. This is another popular thing. And the other popular structure is the story grid, where you form a mesh around different aspects of storytelling, around different artifacts of storytelling. The central story is the core of it. You define the characters, you define the setting, you define the background score, you define the noise around the public, and you define how people look and how people feel. So again, this is again a structural form. But this is why Christopher Nolan is such a brilliant director, is such a brilliant storyteller, because all of his stories do not fit into any of these structures. He has come up with his own structure. And why is that? Because he thinks in shapes, he thinks in figures. He does not directly go to the screenplay, he does not directly go to the structures. While I was reading about this, I was fascinated that I related it to one of Kurt Vonnegut's famous structures. If you remember, if you have been following me for quite some time, last year I had made a video about how Kurt Vonnegut tells these stories. So he basically plotted a graph of the central character. So this is the start of the novel, this is the end of the novel. The positive y-axis is the good fortune of the character, and this is the bad fortune of the character. He basically has a graph. On the y-axis there's bad fortune and the good fortune, and the central line is the character's journey. So basically a character is just going from good fortune or bad fortune. He just joggles in between these two things. And there's a hole formed in this graph where it's popularly called as the man in the hole, where a man who has bad fortune is in the lower side of the graph and he's trying to do things to get into the other side of the graph. Kurt Vonnegut says that literally any story you read can be fit into this structure. You think about Cinderella, she starts from a bad fortune and she does all of these things and goes into the good fortune. So any of the story can be mapped out here. And I just thought, when I looked at the map of Inception's story, it resembled to the man in the hole diagram. It was very similar to the man in the hole diagram. So basically what happens is, the man in the hole structure in the Inception film, he has basically replicated it to 5 more levels. If you've seen the movie Inception, the central character Cobb goes into 5 different levels of dreams only to get back through all the 5 different levels. So basically Christopher Nolan took that shape, pointed out 5 different steps, and then made a story out of it, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. I was really happy. I was really excited to know how basically any story is conceived in the form of a structure. His entire story comes out from this structure and then the film is made, and not the other way. Like, the story is not crafted out of a structure, which is pretty mind-blowing to me. And this is why I really like Christopher Nolan stories. Now, whenever somebody is going to ask me, why do you like Christopher Nolan stories, I'm going to sit them down and tell them each and everything, and I'm going to geek out, because I was in love with this particular book called The Nolan Variations. So I wanted to share this book with you guys. If you too are a Nolan fan, his movie Oppenheimer is coming up. I'm pretty excited how he tells this story of Robert J. Oppenheimer in his own way, in his own unique way. So yeah, you can definitely pick up this book and let me know if you have read this book by any chance. It's a very underrated book. I feel not many people have talked about this book, but it's a fascinating read. It's a little dense. It's very structured towards writers. I'm not a writer, but I'm trying to learn how writing works, because a reader is a good writer and a writer is a good reader as well. It's very synchronous. So that's why I'm trying to explore all of these things. So yeah, that was the video, guys. I really hope you found this fascinating aspect of storytelling. If you also know any type of storytelling, please let me know in the comment section. We can have a discussion around it. That's all for this video. See you in the next one. Bye bye.